Hi, guys. Thanks for joining us today. I am here with Olivia Rogers, a mental health counselor who works with adults in intensive mental health programs, both in intensive outpatient and through her practice. She works at Sanare Counseling Services, where we both met, and we're here today to talk to you about managing holiday stress. So, Olivia, thank you so much for being with us.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk about this today.
Yeah. Me too. Well, you are the expert in my mind because you really work with a lot of adults of all ages who struggle with anxiety, depression, mood and adjustment disorders, and then people who are just going through everyday stress who just need a little extra support. So I wanted to ask you, from your perspective, what do you tend to see people struggling with around the holidays? And what are some tools that we can use to help with that?
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's a really good point is that the thing with stress around the holidays is that it can look so different for so many people. I guess in general, the things that I see most, like with an increase in stress, is like isolating, social anxiety, difficulty with communication and boundaries, or more tense communication with family members. I think feeling a need to like fake it in a way is really big, or feeling like you have to present yourself in such a way. And I think overall there is an increase in just general symptoms, whether that be anxiety, depression, like anything beyond that. I think I read a study that said around the holiday time, 64% of people report an increase in their symptoms. So it's like, let's pay attention to that. What's going on here? I think for a lot of individuals and families coping with mental health challenges, the holiday season can be a lonely or stressful time. So it's filled with a lot of anxiety, depression, isolation, things like that, which can definitely increase symptoms. I think that if you're living with a mental health condition, especially, stress can contribute to worsening symptoms, which is very apparent in the holiday season. Some of the unique I guess impacts that stress can have is in bipolar individuals who suffer from bipolar diagnoses. They can see like a trigger in episodes of mania or depression, things like that. So on top of everything that comes along with like the stress of the holidays, we also have to consider, the COVID-19 crisis and how that has made maintaining a mental health like even more difficult and challenging for so many. So I think because the holidays, of course, bring lots of joy, like we have family reunions, good food, thoughtful gifts. I think they can also entail an incredible amount of stress. And I think it's also important to remember that some people may have very different memories or just have very different Christmases than I think is like traditionally talked about, which is why it may contribute to that like isolation and depression, things like that. So I think it's about like asking ourselves, how can we stay grounded and present and truly let ourselves just like be with the holiday or be with family if that's what we choose, or just be by alone or be by yourself if that's what we choose, be with friends, things like that. So I think some of the most important things to remember is to, number one, just like accept imperfection and just accept that you cannot push yourself to the point of just mental exhaustion, burnout, all those things. So obviously the holiday season can be long and full of commitments like parties. So I think to help manage stress, make a list of kind of what you expect from yourself, what do you expect from others, what are some things realistically that you would like to attend to, some of your responsibilities. I think a lot of people have this tendency to like over commit themselves, I think, especially in the holiday season, whether that be making food or having a party. So I think it's about being comfortable with the idea that you don't have to do everything and everything doesn't have to be perfect. I don't think perfection like exists in general, but like especially during the holidays, it's not about like having to perform in such a way. I think that along with maybe accepting imperfection, it's about accepting that you may get sad, you may get lonely, and that's okay. So if you're coping with mental health concerns, especially, they're not going to go away just because of the holidays, right? They don't just disappear. As awesome as that may be, that's just not realistic, right? So I think keeping up with emotional habits or emotional health habits, and applying them to the holiday season, like we have to make sure that we're keeping like our similar structure, we're keeping like healthy routines that we've implemented even before the holidays. Don't forget your basics, everyone. Don't forget the basics, right? So if you're particularly overwhelmed, I think it's important to also reach out for support. Realize that you can talk to emotional health professionals, you can talk to family, friends, about everything that's on your plate, or else it's just going to seem too overwhelming. So I think along with accepting imperfection, it's about kind of not losing sight of what really matters during the holiday season. So I think there's so many stressors, and like even little things. I notice myself personally, like traffic just becomes like there's just a little bit longer, or the lines in the grocery store just become a little bit more frustrating, things like that. So I think it's about, asking yourself, where does this fit in the grand scheme of things? Like if you're frustrated by the long grocery line, you're standing in, remember, this is just a grocery line and this too will pass. Like this will pass, nothing more. And I don't have to let that impact the rest of my day. I don't have to let traffic impact the rest of my day. I think almost using that as an opportunity to like sit and reflect. Okay, I have this time I'm sitting in traffic. I have this time I'm sitting in the grocery store. I think that's a good time to do things like take inventory of the good things, practice those gratitudes. What am I grateful for today? If nothing else, I'm grateful that I woke up today. So yeah, I think it's so important. Gratitudes can make a big difference, but are seemingly small. I think it's so easy to forget what we're grateful for, especially during the holidays, because it's like we're just moving and constantly just like jumping from one place to another. So I think even though, let's reflect on, yes, these things may be stressful, validate that, but how can I find a way to make it more pleasant? Like, can I do something? Can I call someone while I'm in line? Can I like listen to like a new song or a new podcast on the way home, something like that? So I think it's about just not losing sight of like what really matters during the holidays, and just like noticing those little things and just accepting that they happen and they're there, but they will pass, right?
Of that. So one thing I heard you say that honestly, I don't think I've ever thought about this until I just heard you say it, is literally just like planning that leading up to the holidays, there's going to be more traffic and that lines will be longer.
Mm-hmm.
That this sounds like it seems obvious to you, but I haven't been planning on that.
Yeah, I think it's just like so easy to think that, I don't know, I think sometimes we lose sight of like there's other people in the world who are probably feeling the same thing as we are, and they're going through their own stress. So I think it's about, recognizing I have stress, they have stress, lines are just going to be longer. That's okay. Maybe I can plan for that. And I think it's even beyond like just planning daily schedules or somebody or responsibilities. I think for a lot of people, like finances can be a big like trigger point, or like conversation for tension between like a spouse or a family member, things like that. So I think it's important too, just to set realistic standards in terms of like, okay, what am I willing to spend on presents this year? And like, here's the thing, guys, you don't have to buy expensive gifts. They don't need to know. All that matters, remember, it's about what really matters. It's not about the expensive gifts. It's about the intention behind them, and just to show someone that you were thinking about them. You don't have to buy expensive gifts to make the holidays seem amazing or grand. I think it's just about, let's tune into a budget. Let's not overwork ourselves. It's the same type of process. Let's be realistic with our goals. So I think that it's about like starting small almost in a way and breaking it into smaller steps. So it's like, okay, I would love to host Christmas this year. Okay, great. So what does that look like? What can I do? Can I ask other people to do this for me? I would like to take on the responsibility of planning the white elephant or something like that. Like, okay, what does that look like? What steps are involved like that? And also just be kind to yourself. Like, and this is why it's tapping back into that idea of like, you want to be realistic, tap into like what you really think you could do. I think it's awesome to be able to want to do these things, but we have to consider the impact that's going to have on yourself. If you take on too much, here's the thing, and this is the analogy I always like to use. If you're not filling your own cup up, no one else is going to fill your cup up, and then your cup's going to be empty and you can't fill up anyone else. So I think sometimes it's hard to say like, oh, I really need this time for myself, because it's like, oh no, it's the holidays, you have to spend this time with family. No, you don't. Fill up your own cup first, because if you're not filling your own cup up first, no one's going to be able to like take anything from your cup, or you're not going to be able to help others. So I think it's important to just, again, not lose sight of what really matters and what's really going on, but also to not lose sight of like your own needs and what you just want from the holidays. Like, this is a time to relax, kind of, right? There's so much stress, but I'm like, this is a holiday. Holidays are kind of meant to like be kind of low key and relaxed. And I feel like we kind of lose sight of that sometimes. So just something to consider going in.
Oh my God. Everyone right now, stop what you're doing. Get out a pen and paper. That's revolutionary. Writing down, what do I want for the holidays? How do I want my holiday to look? Because so many people, particularly if you're a parent, are trained into thinking, how do I want my kids' Christmas or holiday season to look? How do I want the family gathering that I'm hosting to look? Rather than, how do I want to feel?
Yeah.
How do I want to be?
Mm-hmm.
And guys, if you are a parent and you're feeling the weight of the holiday season and trying to make this special for everyone, what I want you to remember is Your kids are watching you, your nieces, your nephews, your family, and they're learning from you what it means to show up for other people. So when they see you skip your workout, skip your foods, get dehydrated, get stressed and angry, all in this effort to like do it all, they're learning that. Where another thing that you could show them is to say, hey, you know what? My workout and my food and staying hydrated is really important for me and my health. And so that means that we can't do 3 things in a day. We need to pick 2. That is so powerful for your little ones who are growing up to have someone show them that, because how many of us didn't grow up with that? How many of us watched, right, the adults in our life do everything and stay up all hours of the night, wrapping presents or whatever it was, and we learned those patterns. You get to interrupt that. You get to set a different standard if you want.
Yeah. I think just modeling in general is huge, especially for like parent-child interactions. And I think another important thing to model is like how to set boundaries, not only with yourself, which is kind of what we were talking about earlier with setting realistic boundaries about like what I want the holiday to look like, how much can I do realistically, how much time do I want to give, but also I think it's important to model like setting boundaries with others. I think setting boundaries is something that like everyone could probably benefit from a discussion about, because it is like such like communication in general is just I think something that everyone can kind of like work towards and just learn effective communication skills, because it is so difficult. So something also I want everyone to consider is like, remember your boundaries. Don't do anything you don't want to do, and you don't have to. Just because they're your family doesn't give them the right to violate boundaries. It doesn't give them the right to talk to you in a certain way. It doesn't give them the right to tell you to do certain things. That's just not it. Just because they have that label of family doesn't give them any special right or any special power. So something I like to say to my clients is when you are setting a boundary, I think it's very easy for us to say, you do this, don't do this. What I want people to consider is like I statements over you statements, meaning say, I would prefer if you could do this way, or I would prefer X. I feel X when you do Y. So like, let's change that instead of coming at them with like, you do this, don't do this, blah, blah, blah. Because then automatically that turns people into that defensive state. And then you're both kind of stuck. So it's not about like asking people to do things. Setting a boundary is something you do for yourself, for your own safety. And if nothing else, all you're doing is just stating your needs, your wants, your desires, things like that. So I think it's important to consider that even within like a family dynamic. I think a lot of people struggle with setting boundaries with family members, especially. And then if people continue to violate a boundary, set a consequence. So like if you keep interrupting this, then I'm going to have to limit the amount of time that I can like spend with you, or I'm going to have to limit this. So I think it's not about like stating why there was a violation of a boundary, but like what people can do instead. And if they're not willing to follow that, what's going to come as a consequence, right? I think a lot of people forget that last part, the consequence, because that's the most uncomfortable part, right? Boundaries are supposed to kind of be uncomfortable. That's why we're setting them, is because we're uncomfortable and we're trying to express that to someone else. But I think it can be really difficult for family, spouses, things like that, especially.
Mm-hmm. So this is so great. And guys, if you're just tuning in and you're like, oh my gosh, like I need to write all of this down. Remember, this is like, you can come back and watch this anytime. You can watch this multiple times. But I want you guys to hear something Olivia said that I think was really important, which is in order to have a boundary, you have to know what you want. So that's why going back and writing, what do I want out of this holiday season? But like, what do I want from my reaction with my parent, with my grandparent, with my aunt, with my uncle? How do I want it to go? Because oftentimes what I see too in my office is that people might be really clear on what they don't want. They're not so clear on what they do want. So maybe you don't want the conversation to go in a certain direction. Well, part of that is owning, well, how do I want the conversation to go? And how am I going to steer it in that direction? You guys have a lot of power. And if, particularly if I'm talking to the people who are might be teenage age to kind of 30s, 40s right now, you may be used to other people kind of controlling the direction of a conversation, the flow of a family event, but that doesn't have to stay that way. And so if you really enjoy connecting with your uncle over like a game of cards, whereas maybe you would prefer not to talk to him about politics, start the card game. Don't wait for the conversation to go into politics, and maybe practice with your therapist or a friend how you will set the boundary if that comes up, and divert your energy back to something you really do enjoy doing together. Yeah, Olivia, do you have more thoughts on this? Because I feel like this could obviously be like a long talk.
It's going to be its own live in and of itself, but I think I think a lot of the times, and you brought up a good point of like, there's different types of boundaries. And I think people immediately associate either like emotional or physical, but there's so many more. There's like, yes, physical, but there's also mental, there's political views, there is financial or like material items. Like, am I willing to let this person borrow my car to do this? Am I willing to lend this person $10, not knowing if they'll give it back? Like, it's so much more than just like emotions and ideas. It goes way beyond that. Obviously, there's physical, but I think it's important to recognize too, specifically why this is a boundary for me, and this why it's so important to plan ahead of time so that you're going to know for yourself before it gets to that point. Oh, this is near my like violation zone, if you want to call it that. This is near my violation zone. I'm going to have to stop it here, because sometimes we don't even recognize a boundary is crossed until it's later or it has already happened, and then we're like kind of thrown off guard, which is why it's better to be able to communicate these things beforehand and say, hey, uncle, like, I would love to play this card game with you. I don't want to talk about like politics right now. If you can't respect that, I'm not going to be able to play the card game with you. Right.
And then be comfortable just stopping talking and letting the silence be there.
Yes, be comfortable with being uncomfortable, which is a lot easier said than done. But I think a lot of people find that boundaries can be really empowering, because it's like, oh, wait, I don't have to do these things. I don't have to say this, and I don't have to listen to you say this to me. Right.
And one thing, guys, if you're struggling with wanting to be kind and nice and loving, sometimes it feels like that's in conflict with setting a boundary for many people. And if you need help parsing this out, go see Olivia in her private practice, get on her waiting list. She is great with this. One of the things I've learned from you, from conversations with you, and then also like just along the years, is you can start with what's true. So you can say something like, I love you so much, and I want this to go so well. And also, I don't want to talk about politics, and then just move on. Like, you can be smiley and nice and friendly and affirm that you really love and care about this person while you're setting a boundary. It doesn't have to be a mean thing.
No.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people have that initial interpretation of like, oh, but what are they going to say? Remember, we're not setting a boundary based on how the person's going to respond, right? We also can't use their response as a reflection of our ability or how well we were able to set the boundary, because it's likely that, remember, like, boundaries exist for a reason. If people don't like the boundary, it's likely because they needed the boundary the most, right? If they're not receptive of it, that's not a reflection of your ability to set the boundary or not, or something that you've done wrong. That means that they don't know how to respect your boundaries, and maybe they've never had someone assert a boundary with them, so it's even more uncomfortable for them, which is why there might be like some kind of like response or retaliation. But the goal cannot be, I'm going to communicate this in a way that they won't like yell at me or they won't respond negatively, because that cannot be the goal. That's not what we're doing. The goal of boundary setting is purely just to express our needs, our wants, our desires, XYZ, right? But I think it's getting over that initial like, oh, but what are they going to say? Are they going to think I'm like mean? Are they going to think I'm like being disrespectful? If they think that, that's their interpretation, right?
Oh my gosh. You
Yeah.
guys all need Olivia in your corner to things through, because it's like so simple. It's just like not your responsibility. Move
Yes.
on. I was gonna ask you about one thing. So I think a lot of times when we think about financial stress, or when people who come in my office in particular, shame can come up for them when they think about their own limits.
Mhm.
So, right, like they don't even have this sense of I can't, right? And if they do say something like, well, I need more sleep, or I need to exercise, or I need this, they have some kind of shame come up for them.
Mhm.
Like, well, that shouldn't be a need for you, or what makes you think you're so important, or this or that. So how do you teach people to kind of walk through the shame that can pop up when they are looking at their own needs for the first time in their wants?
I mean, I think it is, for a lot of people, it can be super uncomfortable. But what I prompt them to consider, because it's a lot easier for people to visualize this if they're in like kind of someone else's space, is like, if a friend came to you with these concerns, like, how would you respond to them? If a friend came to you and said, I'm really tired, I'm burnt out, what would you say to them? And why are you not saying that to yourself? Because it's likely going to be two different answers. And that's how we're able to practice that kind of like self-compassion. If we really struggle with that shame component, then it's about, okay, how can I view this in an objective way? Like, let's really focus into what's going on here. Like, people are going to have different limits. It's going to range, but like, we need to understand what is our limit and when am I there? That's not a shameful thing. That just means we're practicing awareness. and we're aware of like our limitations, even like our boundaries, things that we were talking about previously. So I think it's about being able to view it objectively, meaning like, okay, how would I respond to someone else? And like, why is it so difficult for me to be able to view myself in the same way? Because we view ourselves way differently than we view others. But I think for other people, when they take themselves out of the equation, they're like, okay, let's view this how I would view a friend. I think people are able to be more objective with themselves and can talk to themselves in a much more like logical, non-critical way, if that makes sense.
I love that. I'm reminded here, guys. So you need to sign up for Thrive University programs that are being run by Olivia. So you can go to the Sanare Today website. Sanare is SANARE today.com, and go to the Thrive University programs, because Olivia leads workshops around these topics that are very, very helpful and kind of give you a chance to work this out in real time. And they're really affordably priced, right? Maybe like a fifth to a tenth of a therapy session.
Yeah.
Right. So this is why they're there. So you can practice this in real time with a therapist like Olivia. The other thing that this is reminding me of, Olivia, and I want to kind of pick your brain about this, is this feels a lot like, have you read Gifts of Imperfect Parenting by Brene Brown, or any Brene Brown stuff?
Of course. We love Brene Brown.
So guys, if your parents, listen to Gifts of Imperfect Parenting and then sign up with Olivia to talk it through, because what I love, and what I'm hearing you say, Olivia, and what it's reminding me of, is it's okay to be in struggle. So it's okay to say to your kids, it's really important for me that this holiday be special for you. And I'm having a hard time making it work financially. So I need to choose. I want you to pick 3 gifts that are around $20, XYZ. And you can have that conversation with everyone you care about, that you are stressed about meeting their expectations around the holidays. And that's a really cool conversation, because it builds their own resilience too. And then it gives them permission to say, oh my gosh, I'm kind of stressed about this too. I feel like I had something come up this holiday where like I was worried about buying gifts for like this 30-person party. And I'm thinking, oh my God, like it's just a lot, and someone texted the group and just said, can we just do a Pollyanna and buy one gift? And then we all exchange. And I was like, thank God, and so you can be that person for everybody else.
Yeah.
If you're brave enough to speak up. Yeah, Olivia, you're nodding, so I'm going to give you back the floor.
Well, it's likely, and that's a really good example of one of those situations where like a lot of people are probably all thinking the same thing, but no one wants to say it or be the first one to say it. But I think it's really important, and it's going to validate a lot of other people when you talk about like what's going on with you. Like, hey, I'm feeling a little overwhelmed. Can we kind of like talk about what we want to do in terms of like this 30-person party? Because that's a lot. That would be a lot, I think, for anyone. See, like that was even an example of a validation in that, and like, hey, you have a reason to be feeling this way, and I'm also going to express that I feel that way. That can be validating. And so I think it's about, challenging. There's really good TED Talks on this from Brene Brown herself, who talk about like we're probably all thinking the same thing. Someone just needs to say it. And if you have the power and the courage to say it, it's likely that you're going to feel that validation from other people. Cause it's like, for the most part, like humans are pretty symbiotic in that we all kind of like think the same way. It's likely that if you're thinking something, someone else is thinking the same thing. So I think it's this process of challenging yourself to say, wait, like, let me clarify this. Let me get this out there. Let me kind of like test the waters, if you will, see if anyone feels this way, because then other people are going to be like, oh my God, yes, finally someone said it. And we're going to be like, okay, why didn't we talk about this sooner? So I think it's this process of like trusting yourself and saying, there's a reason I'm feeling this way. Let's express that to someone else. Let's see if they feel the same way. And let's see like if we can come to a conclusion together, or we can compromise, something like that. So good.
So good. Okay. I want to thank you for joining us, because you have spent a lot of time talking to us, and I know you're very busy, and this is now a free resource that's going to live online. And so guys, like maybe you use this year, come back next year and rewatch it, preferably like before the holidays.
Yes.
You can get ahead of your stress. But Olivia, tell us a little bit about your practice, what you do, who you see, so that people know how they can get in touch with you.
Yeah, of course. So I do a lot of the services here at Sanare Today. I do the IOP services, things like that, but I also do see private clients or like individual clients here. I'm going to be transitioning to the Havertown office, which means I'm probably going to have availability starting in January. So you can contact me through the work email. So it's OROGERS at sanaretoday.com. It's all on the website. It's all there. So I typically work with adults of all ages, so 18 plus. I see a range of, I've kind of like seen it all: anxiety disorders, trauma, stress, depression, bipolar, like I've seen it all. So it's like, I have a pretty big availability in terms of like what I treat. And then I also, in conjunction with that SES or the individual counseling I do Thrive You, kind of what Kate was talking about earlier. So what it is, it's not necessarily therapy in terms of we're not going to be doing any processing, but it's going to be very similar to some of the things I talked about today. It's going to be theme-based, and it's going to be like implementation, because I think for a lot of people, like we kind of already know the things, but like implementing is the hardest. That's what that Thrive You component is for. It's also for like socializing. It's also for connecting. So in the month of January, we're looking to bring in a yoga instructor to teach like a weekly yoga session. So it's a good time to kind of tune in, focus on like, okay, what's really going on with my body, increase that mind-body connection, get things like that. So we like to do different things, all available on the website. But yes, so there's the Thrive You component, and then there's also the individual counseling. Same email for both. So if anyone wants to know more, please don't hesitate to reach out or contact me. I love hearing from you guys, and I love just like hearing what the need is. If you have a suggestion for like a workshop or a series, please let me know. I love that. And I love getting feedback or just hearing, you know, what's going on. And it sounds like maybe next year, Kate, we have to do like a part 2 to this, because there's I could talk about this for an hour. Like we have to come back for a part 2 next year before the holidays.
A whole series starting in October.
Maybe, yeah.
And then we're going to go through checklists every week. Oh, so good. All right, guys. Well, now you know how to get in contact with Olivia. And please, like, most therapists do not do this wide of an array of services, right? Like you can get in touch with her. You can see her 4 days a week through IOP. You can see her through individual counseling. She runs these workshops that are super affordable and accessible. So whenever I run into someone who has a holistic mindset like Olivia does, and who does a really good job of making their services accessible in a variety of ways, I hang on to them as like my referral source. And our shared clients say really wonderful things about Olivia. So do not like walk, run to see her, email her, get on her list. And thank you, Olivia, for joining us today. We will talk to you soon.
Thank you.